Hello everyone, and welcome back to DMG. Today I have something pretty wacky for you, and that is an HP premium laptop, that's literally what it's called, designed specifically for playing movies. And that is like its big selling point. So this is quite an interesting laptop, way more interesting than I just made it sound. And they actually didn't make a lot of these. The series died out after only a few models in the lineup, and very few people know these even exist. But I bought one, and here I am to show it to you all, because this thing is quite fascinating. This is the HP HDX 16 premium laptop. Now, just looking at the case, it's actually not horribly scratched. That is the paint job. And in this lighting, it does not look very pretty, but I assure you, in person, it's quite gorgeous. And oh, I guess you get to see my closet and my camera, because it is quite glossy. As always, let's just start with ports going around the outside. On the left side, we have VGA dot connector, RJ45, which is gigabit Ethernet, HDMI, eSATA plus USB 2, USB 2, FireWire, and an express card slot. On the front, we have an SD card reader, well, SD, Memory Stick, Pro, MMC, XD, it reads everything you can put in it, basically. Then we have our microphone and 2 headphone out ports. They can be used simultaneously and are actually not recognized separate by the OS. It just says there's one headphone out port, but they are obviously split somewhere into 2 different jacks. So I guess if you want to watch a movie with a friend, but still want to wear headphones for whatever reason, you could do that. Here we have, on the right side, another USB 2 port, a blocked port for the optional TV tuner. Skipping over to the top, another USB 2 port, so that's 4, Kensington lock, and the charger and power light. Now, of course, I skipped over the optical drive, and that's because it needs some special attention. This is not just your regular DVD rewritable drive that comes in most laptops of this era. This optical drive was actually a huge selling point of this laptop because it can play Blu-rays. It's called the HDX laptop, and the HD in the name is by no means a coincidence. HD multimedia was a massive selling point of this thing. I actually don't own a single Blu-ray, so I can't test this drive, but if I ever do come across one, now I have a drive to play it with. And I actually bought this laptop for about $35. Which is about the price that an internal SATA Blu-ray drive sells for. So basically I bought a Blu-ray drive and got a free laptop to go with it. On the back you have nothing, just an extension of the speaker grills and a nice vent. While we're on the topic of interesting things that other laptops don't really have, let's go around to the express card slot. Now, most laptops, in fact all laptops I've seen with an express card slot, come with a little blank plastic filler, as does this one. But it's not just a worthless piece of plastic. If you flip it around, it's actually a tiny remote control. It has a little jog dial, I suppose would be the correct word, plus a click wheel, and it has a ton of buttons on it. It just takes one CR2025 battery. It would be really cool if it had contacts and actually charged from the power pins of the express card slot, but that would run down the laptop battery faster, and it's not really needed. So although I think that would be cool, there's no reason for it. But it has a lot of buttons, and it's actually quite useful for controlling the laptop, although it is quite unwieldy to hold because of the odd shape of express card cards. But I'll come back to this remote a little bit later. For now, I think it's time to open it up. In this light, you can see the paint job a little better. It's mainly blue and gray with small streaks of gold. And there is some sticker residue because the eBay seller I bought it from does label their laptops for inventory tracking, but it will all come out because, again, it's quite glossy, so it should be easy to clean. It's very simple on the top, and I like that. No massive logo, just a little HP logo, and in the Core 2 Duo days, that is what the HP logo looked like. They later eliminated the rectangle around it, but it just says HP HDX Premium Series right here. And really quickly, let's just discuss the hilarious BS branding on this. And it's mainly on the bottom. Like flipping it over, steal my Windows Vista key, I don't care. Right here, it says HP Protect Smart. They literally branded the piece of plastic that goes over the hard drive and the RAM. They could have saved like a cent of ink by just not printing that there. And up here, over this subwoofer, which I'll get into a bit later, it says HP Triple Bass Reflex Subwoofer. It's literally just a speaker. You didn't need to print that on there. And they're just shoving words together. That means literally nothing, and it's hilarious. But up here, while we're on the back, it gives me a good opportunity to talk about the cooling and ventilation, which is quite good. We have big intake fan here, and this heat pipe on this side is actually for the GPU, and up here there is a separate heatsink for the CPU. So the CPU heat pipe runs down here and GPU heat pipe runs down around there, and keeping the heat pipes and heat sinks separate, but still having one fan that blows through two different areas is very smart. It keeps great cooling performance by keeping them separate and giving a separate cooling system for each component, but it still cools them well while keeping noise down from having only one fan. I lied, it actually has two fans. There's another tiny one under here for which the intake is this grate, but it literally just blows air onto a solid wall in front of the hard drive caddy. So I have literally no clue what that fan is for. Here it is in my hand, here's a little picture. It's tiny, it's inaudible. I've never heard it. I mean, I'm sure it's turning on, but I can't hear it, so the tiny fan is not whiny. But here's your hard drive and RAM as discussed earlier, and then this tiny thing is your wireless card, and your battery is nicely integrated into the case, and it's all nice and smooth. Finding batteries for this can be a bit difficult because it uses a different battery than like most other HP laptops, and this one only fits like 2 or 3 models. So if you buy one of those, just be aware of that. But let's do what I said I would do like 5 minutes ago and open it up. Personally, I think this is the most gorgeous laptop that I've ever seen, and definitely the prettiest that I own. It's very visually striking with its silver keyboard, its very dark blue case, and the accents in the paint. Going back to this system's video playback marketing, the GPU is branded as the Nvidia Pure Video HD. Nvidia used that branding for GPUs that could decode HD video, back when that was a huge selling point. And of course, Centrino 2 platform, so Core 2 Duo CPU, it is a T series, and it originally shipped with Windows Vista. You also get a fingerprint reader here. Now let's talk about this display. It is a beautiful 1920 by 1080 glossy display. And, I mean, it's 2008. 1920 by 1080 wasn't unheard of. I mean, the big monitor I have behind this laptop is from 2001, and it's 1920 by 1200. But But Ultra HD displays in the 2000s were typically only found on massive, heavy, expensive laptops like the XPS that I covered a few videos ago. This laptop was only about $1,000, not accounted for inflation at launch. So, getting a Blu-ray drive and this HD display with discrete Nvidia graphics that not only do good video decoding but fantastic 3D at that price was a huge steal. This is also the next pretty aspect of the laptop. We have this row of lights up here, and those are actually your control keys. Volume, play, pause, stop, eject, volume, mute, launch HP Media Smart, wireless on and off, and here we have adjustments for treble and bass, which I will again discuss a bit later. And these touch controls are actually my biggest complaint with this laptop. I would give this laptop a 10 out of 10 were it not for these touch controls, but they are, I wouldn't say they're unusable, but they are incredibly unpleasant to endure. Take a guess at how you change the volume using this long bar with minus at the bottom and plus at the top. Let's see, you probably drag your finger up and down to set the volume, right? Nope, that clearly doesn't work. You want to know how you use it? You tap repeatedly on the very top or the very bottom, and it's also not very responsive. The only areas that are actually touch sensitive is the very top and the very bottom. And yes, you can actually hold your finger down, but when you're playing audio, it lags the audio driver and makes an awful sound if you hold your finger down. So you really do have to tap, which is really unfortunate. Same for the treble and bass adjustment. You can change whether you're adjusting the treble or bass level by pressing this button on the left, and that changes from treble to bass adjustment. And it's that same clunky press at the top or the bottom. There's also no feedback to let you know that you've pressed the button. There's no click sound played through the speakers. The lights don't flash or dim or get brighter. There's nothing to let you know that you've pressed the button, other than, of course, the UI on screen. And the most unfortunate part is they could have done something so cool with these bars of light in the middle between the buttons. I could have excused the clunky controls if this actually changed brightness or only some of them lit up depending on the volume level. But no, these are always completely lit up. And it makes no sense. Even if you mute the volume, it still stays completely lit up. I didn't like the touch controls on the Latitude E4200, where you press the button, it briefly turns blue, and you have to repeatedly tap it to change the volume. But that is so much better compared to the HP HDX. The buttons are far more responsive. You actually get feedback letting you know you've pressed them with the blue light. I mean, look, I can barely tap these, and it still receives an input. Versus on the HDX, you really do have to mash your finger on there to get it to change the volume. And though it feels like they're not sensitive enough when you're trying to use them, they're too sensitive when you're not trying to use them. The plastic of the bar attracts fingerprints very, very well. And you know what's conductive? Finger oils. So, unfortunately, unless this bar is perfectly clean of any fingerprints, you'll get random inputs from the bar. When I was first using this laptop, I legitimately thought it was possessed because the volume just kept randomly changing every few seconds with no input from me. And yes, that's pretty bothersome. But the worst part is, you know what else is on this bar other than the volume? The wireless control switch. And you know what's pretty inconvenient when you're trying to work? Your Wi-Fi turning on and off. If anything, they should have just moved the wireless switch to a physical switch on the side of the case or up on a function key. And you may be thinking, oh, but all the volume buttons are up there and you kind of need those. Yes, but so are back, forward, play, pause, and stop. You know where else those exact same 4 keys are? F9, F10, F11, and F12. The keys are right there, but they put them on the function keys anyway. So that is 4 more keys this bar doesn't need, and also the eject button doesn't work. I really like the idea, and I think it looks great, but in practice, it is not effective at accomplishing what it's supposed to at all. Why not put volume adjustment on the arrow keys as functions of the arrow keys? For bass and treble adjustment, on the numpad would be maybe a good place to put that, like function 7 increases bass, function 8 increases treble, function 4 decreases bass, and so on and so forth. There are so many keys on the keyboard that these could have been mapped to instead of putting them on this useless bar up here. But I do kind of like the look of this bar, so if they wanted to keep the bar and make it actually work, they could have put sensitive switches underneath the plastic and just used a more flexible material. That would have allowed you to just use the buttons and have them actually have a tactile input, and B, they would be far more responsive. Now that I'm done ranting, let's get on to another fun aspect of the keyboard. The caps lock light is off to the side, and it's this little LED under this translucent panel. Numlock also has a similar light, but it's not exactly above the key, it's up to the right. Scroll lock, unfortunately, does not get a light because who even uses that button? And finally, the last decision I question the reasoning for on this laptop is this button. That is a massive button that literally just turns the trackpad off or on. There are so many other places you could have put that. This button could have been a middle click for the trackpad since it doesn't actually have a middle click button. Or that could have just been not there. If you do want a button to turn off the trackpad, why not put it up on the touch sensitive bar? Or why not put it on a function key? Why have it right there where it's very easy to accidentally press if you're typing on the keyboard, as people often do with laptops? Luckily, there is a clear indicator of when the touchpad is off versus on, so I do kind of forgive them for that. I lied, we're not done with buttons yet, because it's time to look at the remote. Now, it is IR, so it is line of sight, and the receiver is down on the front of the laptop next to the headphone jacks, so I will have to stand a little further away to use it. The power button puts the laptop to sleep, or if it's in sleep mode, it will wake it back up. The volume buttons, as one would expect, do indeed change the volume, and the play, pause, stop, fast forward buttons, those all work as they should. The wheel, the actual scrolling part, I have not been able to find an application that takes advantage of it, and the start key, the little Windows key on the remote, also doesn't seem to work. I would assume that because this laptop originally shipped with Windows Vista, and though I have installed all the drivers I could find, I don't have the original restore disks, I would assume there's just some special software or driver that would make the remote work a little better that I just don't have. So I'm not going to fault them too much for that. But the navigation buttons, so pressing the scroll wheel up and down, do indeed work. There is a right click, like a mouse right click, and then there's also a left click, which is the center button. Its glossy 1080p screen is absolutely gorgeous, and it displays HD content beautifully. And let's go back to the GPU and that Nvidia Pure Video HD. We can see that decoding this high bitrate 1080p video puts about 60% load on the video engine, which is quite nice because it takes a lot of load off of the CPU. The only reason there's so much CPU load is I think Windows Update might be running in the background. Now why don't we test the treble and bass adjustments? I don't know how well this will come across on camera, but I'll try my best. I have bass all the way up and I'm turning it down. There is a little bit of a delay between actually pressing the button and hearing the change reflected in the sound driver. So if you're trying to do more precise adjustments, that can be a little inconvenient, but it doesn't make it completely unusable. I was actually surprised at just how good the adjustment is. Now let's adjust our treble. The treble adjustment is far less obvious than the bass adjustment on the main speakers. However, when you plug in headphones, both sound much more discernible from a flat equalizer. And yes, I am pleased to report that these adjustments in tone aren't just for the internal speakers. They apply to any speakers or headphones you plug into the headphone jack, or rather either of them, on the front. And that's an absolutely great feature that I didn't quite expect. Of course, if you're using like Bluetooth headphones, it won't work, but anything that's running from the internal sound card will have the tone change that you set. The fact that it's controlled through the sound card driver also explains some of the lag in changing volume and in changing the tone. Earlier I mentioned that it made a horrible sound when you held your finger down on the buttons, and I'm going to demonstrate that right now. Okay, I think I've done a good enough job at demonstrating just how poorly the touch controls actually work, and also a little bit of the crackles and pops and freezes you get from the audio driver when you hold your fingers down on the buttons. Let's move on to some things that were less of a selling point for the device. First, we'll see how the keyboard and touchpad feel. The touchpad feels nice and responsive. However, despite its glossy finish, it does have an unpleasant resistance to it. It feels like it takes way more effort than it should to drag your finger across its surface, and it also does attract fingerprints quite easily. But it's definitely usable, it is reasonably sized, and if you install the Synaptics driver, you also get, nice features like scrolling. Onto the keyboard, this is actually one of my favorite laptop keyboards, hands down. I'm not as accurate as I usually am since I'm sitting at an angle to film. However, I really, really love this keyboard. The keys still have a firm feeling, and it does take some force to press them down, but they're not loud, they're not clacky, and they do have a nice tactile bump to them that I do quite like. So it's not my favorite laptop keyboard of all time, but it's definitely up there as one of the best I've ever used. Definitely far better than anything you get on a modern laptop. The addition of a numpad for numpad things is also quite nice. A lot of older laptops that I have don't actually have a numpad, so this having one is great. Usually you don't find those on laptops designed for entertainment like this one, so it's especially nice that it has one. Another neat detail I want to mention is on the lid, the HP HDX logo actually lights up, and unlike, say, a MacBook where it's illuminated by the screen backlight, there are actually separate LEDs that turn this on and off. And I know that because this doesn't change brightness when you change the screen brightness. This laptop's GPU is not only good for video, it's actually quite a competent little card. It is soldered to the board, so you can't upgrade it, but there really is no need to. It's an odd card though, because it doesn't actually exist. The card in this laptop is a GT130M from the GeForce 100 series, which was never actually released to the public. They were rebadges of 8000 and 9000 series cards that were sold exclusively to OEMs. This GT130M has the same shader configuration as the 9500 GT desktop card, and the one in this laptop has 1 GB of DDR2 all to its own, and that's not shared system memory, that is the GPU's actual RAM. So it having its own VRAM to work with is quite a boon to this card. I am actually one of the stupidest people on the planet. First time I tried to do a 3D test of the GPU, it was running awfully slow. So I was wondering, why is that? So I checked GPU-Z and the GPU was running at 102 degrees Celsius. So I immediately shut off the laptop and then realized I had forgot to reconnect the fan after I repasted the CPU and GPU. But that does give us an opportunity to look on the inside. First of all, this laptop is a nightmare to take apart. Let's just look over here. It took me about 15 minutes to get this apart. And this is the second time I've done it. We have 5 different screw sizes, and it's not labeled where each screw goes, like some laptops are. But the motherboard on the inside is very well designed. Actually, let me turn it this way. So you can see CPU and the North Bridge have their own heatsink that goes to this heat pipe, and the GPU has its own heatsink that goes to that heat pipe. And on the back, we can see the memory modules for the GPU right there. And of course, ooh, that bends. CPU is over here. And this is the weird tiny fan I was talking about. And I mean, look at that. It literally just blows against the solid wall of the hard drive caddy. It does nothing, and I have no clue why it is there. If it was like an exhaust fan, that would make sense. If it had intake on the inside, yes, I could get that. But no, it draws air in from the bottom blows it against a solid wall. There's not even like a scoop there to guide the air. So yeah, I have no idea why that exists. And just to get to the motherboard, it does have the hole on the bottom for RAM and hard drive access, but just to get to the motherboard, you have to take off the screen, the upper chassis, you have to take out the express card, you have to take out the speakers, you have to take out the optical drive, the keyboard, this bottom panel, the wireless card, the panel that covers the wireless card, the speaker panel, the battery. Did I already say the speakers and the keyboard? So yeah, you have to take the whole damn thing apart to just get to the motherboard. So that's why it takes so long. And now that I've reconnected the fan and shown you the insides of this thing, it's time to put it back together. But yeah, I thought everyone might just enjoy that a little. But with that, let's go ahead and test Unreal Tournament 2004 again. And then if it doesn't do the stuttering thing, we'll go back and test Blur. Immediately, it's running faster even in the menus. And yes, I am running a lot of mods, but that won't affect performance because, well, that's mainly CPU intensive. And the CPU in here is more than capable of handling a game that's like 4 years older than it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was the drivers.
Play together.
Yeah, it was the drivers.
Okay. Leave it to me and everything will be A-okay.
Sorry, I'm not doing too well. I can barely see the screen at the angle I have to sit at. But yeah, update your drivers, I guess. So hopefully that'll make Blur perform quite a lot better as well.
Gotcha. Is this how you use it?
Awesome. Okay, yeah, let's go test Blur now. I really do feel that subwoofer. It's very good. And it's running absolutely amazing. God damn it, right as I say that it stutters, but it seems much more stable than, well actually it's playable without the computer randomly restarting, unlike the old drivers. Let's see if we can crank it up at all. I hear that fan ramping up. We'll go into graphics and set it to the next quality level up. It'll take a bit to apply. It feels a little slower, but I mean, without installing monitoring software and stuff, this feels like a solid 40-ish FPS. So it's definitely more than, yeah, you get the occasional lag spike. It's definitely more than, oops, thought that was a ramp. Definitely more than playable at the medium graphics quality, and dare I say, it might run just fine at high. Yeah, okay. I was too quick to judge this laptop based on the awful drivers that HP shipped it with. With the updated drivers that are meant for 7 and not Vista, and, well, just a newer version anyway, games are performing quite a lot better. If you buy one of these or a laptop with the same GPU, don't get it from the manufacturer of the laptop, get the drivers from the manufacturer of the GPU. That's a good general rule. I can barely hear that fan noise when the laptop was open sitting on the floor. And I mean, of course my repasting helped, but that is an exceptionally quiet fan. So the cooling system they have going on in here is fantastic. But while we're on the topic of odd 3D and media things that this laptop can do, it's time to get into the webcam software it shipped with, because this is truly the most entertaining thing on this machine, and I am not exaggerating in any way. The HP Media Smart Webcam software presents you with a whole suite of proto-Instagram social media time-wasting filters, and it's absolutely beautiful. The fact that they shipped this with this laptop is just amazing, because this was a quite expensive laptop. It was a little over $1,000 at its launch. And that's not adjusted for inflation. That would be a little more in today's prices. But it allows you to put goofy little effects on your videos. But things just keep getting weirder as you go further and further. Let's go ahead and hit capture, and I'll splice this video, well, into the video. Get that out of here. We're switching to just the webcam and the laptop microphone, which is actually not that bad. We'll go ahead and start with the effects. Wanted to wear a hat? Great, don't have to buy one. I can put one on with HP Media Smart Webcam software. I'm sitting behind this background because I feel like it's kind of the blandest thing in my entire room, so as not to confuse the software. You can use one effect at a time, and there are a whole host of effects. The first page is just hats and stuff that you can put on, just silly, goofy little hats and things that go around your face. You can have smoke come out of your ears. You can set yourself on fire. You can set yourself on more fire. You can, why is there even an angel there? I only think of evil. And this is where it gets really weird. I am this man. I have become this man. I am waggling my eyebrows, and the man on screen is waggling his eyebrows as well. I can turn into dog 1. I can turn into dog 2. Okay, that's actually really cute. The thing is, the mouth, like the mouth movement being so unrealistic. Like, look at that koala's mouth when I talk. Like that is obviously, they just took a picture of a koala and photoshopped in a mouth. Like, oh, ever wanted to be a statue? What even are you? It's cute, but oh my god! There are just so many funny things in here. Please laugh. By the way, I'm adding none of this in post. I'm doing this all with the software. It actually allows you to put yourself in on all of these different screens. Honestly, it's really cool that this software is over a decade and a half old, and you can just do all this cool stuff in it, and it's not that mind-blowing today, especially the frames, but considering just how old it is, well, I mean, I think it's pretty damn mind-blowing. Then there are, of course, the effects that, oh god, that makes me look so ugly. This looks like a screensaver. I need this as my screensaver. There's, of course, the classic color invert, the very Christmas-themed bank security camera, and this one I actually kind of like. It embosses your picture. Let me grab something. Here is a Quadro FX. Oh, that actually looks really cool. So, of course, this is all done in software by the GPU. None of this is like anything special with the camera. It just finds the outlines in your photo and highlights them. But it can be very cute, and it gives you a good laugh every once in a while. Of course, you can also draw on your video. So if I wanted to indicate to my viewers that this is in fact a dog that you are watching, I could conveniently draw, and actually I could see this being very useful for presentation software. This is the dog that I'm selling, this is his nose, these are the eyes, and over here, wouldn't you believe it, hair.
There are also stamps that you can add of various shapes that it goes ahead and gives you. And, of course, erasers to deal with your precious creation. And... oh, that's something. Erasing my artwork, I would also like to demonstrate that these aren't just 2D images. I'm moving my head right now, and although the face tracking is not the best, there certainly is some sort of aspect of 3D modeling. Now, it's definitely not the best 3D model, nor the most realistic, especially under the, well, I can't point out one area because it honestly just looks bad all around, but the fact that, again, 2008, that they just released this with a consumer laptop, a software that is able to track your face, is quite neat. Once you turn the effects on, I can't figure out how to turn them off. So, I'll just walk you through the rest of the software while I have a nice hat on, and we'll see how well it tracks my head. So, there's also noise reduction, which doesn't do much, brightness, which does something, contrast and exposure only works in photos. And you can also turn on automatic lighting, which I actually recommend because it's quite nice. There's also manual zoom, which doesn't quite work. Oh, there we go. It wasn't working earlier, but now it is. So, of course, this is just digital zoom. There's no optical zoom to the webcam, but let's say you want to sit really far back in your room and still have your face on the webcam. It's actually a genuinely very useful feature. And you can also have it automatically zoom to your face, no matter where you are. And a lot of third-party webcams will do this, but even a lot of modern laptops won't actually do this with their webcams. But still, having this is an absolutely nice feature. Now, note that this doesn't work with the dog. You can't be the dog and have it automatically track your face, but it does work with... yeah, it does work with the other effects, which is actually just so neat. I mean, you can... this one's my favorite. Honestly, having augmented reality sort of features, face tracking, and being able to warp your image somewhat realistically onto a large curved surface, like the buildings, is really impressive for a 2008 laptop that just came with this software. You didn't have to buy this, it's just included. So I know I spent way too long talking about this, but it's my favorite feature, and it's absolutely the best feature on any laptop ever, if I'm being honest.
I'd give this laptop a solid 8 out of 10. It's powerful, it's sleek looking, and it has a ton of I/O. However, the inconvenient touch controls and less than an hour of battery life do kind of detract from the experience. That doesn't stop this from being one of my favorite laptops in my collection, however. I was lucky to only get this laptop for about $40, but they frequently go above the $100 mark due to how uncommon the HDX series is. Thus, if you are looking for a laptop of this era with Nvidia graphics, I would recommend a Latitude E6400 or E6410 or any of the numerous HP Pavilion laptops that shipped with Nvidia graphics. So, if all you want is the graphics, this might not be the best laptop for you. However, if you're looking for a Core 2 Duo laptop with a 16-inch Full HD display and a Blu-ray drive, well, this is actually the only one I know of that has those specs. It performs outstandingly well in multimedia tasks, having gorgeous video and fantastic sound, with the ability to adjust either through graphics drivers and the aforementioned touch controls. I'm very glad that I bought this laptop. However, I do recognize that it is pretty niche. If you're just looking for an old laptop, there are better options. And if you're just looking for a laptop to watch movies on, there are better options. However, if you want a beautiful syndication of the two, a gorgeously designed computer that could have only existed in the late 2000s, then the HP HDX16 is just for you.